Welcome back to my channel. Today I have the first of several weekly reads that I'll do. I had wanted to do them on Fridays and call them Friday reads, but it is very difficult for me to make videos on a consistent basis, so I figured the best way to cover all of these reviews would be by calling them weekly reads. And I kind of want to let you know how I plan on doing this. I haven't done any in the month of April. So I go back to April 1st from when I was reading, and I know that it is now June. So I am not going to inundate you. I will simply do them like this. In my spreadsheet, every week ends with a gray line and gray shading, I should say. So every video, that's a new week because it's a new month. That's it, and it goes forward like that. It continues onto here. And so forth. Okay, I wanted to show you that because that's what I want to do. I want to try to review each book in each weekly section, maybe a couple of videos a week until I'm caught up, but we'll have to take one day at a time and see how it goes. So for starters, I'd like to tell you about the first book that I reviewed, and that was The Oxford Mystery. Now, The Oxford Mystery was by Faith Martin, and it is the fifth book in the Jenny Starling series. Back in March, I reviewed the first 4 books, and now I had the opportunity to read the 5th book, but in a future video, you'll hear a review of the 6th book, which is the Tea Time Mystery. As far as this was concerned, this came out April 2nd, and I gave it 4 stars. Now, in this book, in this series, Jenny Starling is a traveling cook. Every few weeks or so, she goes to a new assignment. And usually they're weekend assignments. Well, this one here is a 3-month assignment. It's a great job because she's going to be working for a prestigious university. Now, her first job, her first group of people that she's going to cook for are several taxidermists that are at a convention. So she's thinking about her menu and how to provide different things that they may not be used to eating. And that's the thought process that Jenny is experiencing in the beginning of the book. Well, while we read that, we see that in the narration, someone is plotting murder. At this point, it's an unnamed person. Now, shortly after we meet Jenny and listen to the narration of the unnamed person, the president of the Taxidermy Association, Maurice Raines, was found murdered. Well, in previous novels, we see that Jenny was an amateur sleuth. So yes, this is a cozy mystery. So she slips right into that role and is determined to find out who killed Maurice. And all the while, she's preparing food for not now just the people at the convention, but the police that are there. And as a matter of fact, the police know of her history, so they kind of listen to her and what she has to say, and it works out for them. Although, as they start to investigate this, because there's so many people at the convention, they have a lot of suspects, and so they really have their work cut out for them. So as mentioned already, she takes her time being between cooking and sleuthing. But this time it's a little bit different. Jenny has a romantic interest because all the while her attention has been towards cooking and not romance. So it was kind of a treat to see something blooming in that direction. Sorry for the background noise. I don't know how many more books are in the series beyond book number 6 that I read, but I definitely look forward to the series. Okay, that, by the way, was from Joffre Books, and it was a blog tour, so it was also Books and All Promotions and NetGalley. Okay, let me tell you about the next book I'm reading. It's Chocolate Chip Cookie Murder by Joanna Fluke. Now, I have a couple of friends who are reading this series, and they have been telling me for close to a year that I really need to read it. I didn't want to start it right away because I'm reading two big series, and that's the J.D. Robin Death series with, I think, 50 titles come February, and also the Lucy Stone series by Leslie Meyer, which has about 25 books. But I decided to read the first book in this series. It's the Hannah Swenson series. There's currently 24 books, and in February the 25th book will come out. Now, when we read or learn about Hannah Swenson, we find out that she's an owner of a popular bakery in Minnesota. And what she is primarily doing is creating culinary delights. Now, while she's working on her recipes, her mother is working on trying to fix her up. So she keeps having over for dinner with this single person and that single person. Now, Hannah's not ready to settle down, and if she does, she doesn't want her mother's help. Another thing, or the key thing in this book, because it's a cozy mystery series, is there's a murder. And in the case of this murder, Hannah shifts her attention from what she's doing to the delivery man who is actually murdered. And that's pretty much it. It's a quick book. I think, let's see, I didn't write the number of pages down, but it came out in 2000. It was a quick read, a great start to the series. As I mentioned, the 25th book will be out in February, so hopefully every month or so I'll have a chance to read these books. The next book I read was a print arc, and that was by Grace Barlows, When a Duchess Says I Do. This was a good read. It's the second book in the Rogues to Riches series, and it came out on April 2nd, and I gave it 4.5 stars. So obviously I liked it. Now, when we start the story, we see that Matilda Wakefield is on the run. She's in grave danger, and she was literally found in the area that's infested by poachers, and she runs into Duncan Wentworth, and he decides to save her life because he knows if he doesn't help her, the poachers are going to find her, and just about anything can happen to her. So while he's trying to save her life, she has a weapon and she almost takes his life. Well, she's been on the run, so she has to decide, I'm not going to kill this man. Wait, this man wants to help me, so she lets him help her. Now, when he decides to help her, he realized it could be quid pro quo because he's in need as well. And what happened with Duncan was he's a former school teacher, but now he came into his title and he needs a lot of assistance. One of the things he needs is decoding letters in books, and he finds out that Matilda happens to be very, very skilled, so she can help him as much as he's helping her. Now, Matilda still is hiding the reason that she's running from Duncan. So while she's doing this, she kind of likes Duncan. She's very drawn to him, but he's all business. He just wants to focus on getting these things decoded and go forward from there. So in the series, Duncan is the second member of the Wentworth family that we meet, because in the first book we met Quinn and how he met Mary Jane. Well, Quinn and Jane and their children have cameos in this book, and I always love that because it's great continuity. Now, quite naturally, I wanted them to get together as a couple. I wanted their marriage to be real and for them to have a future together. So in order for me to feel that way about them, I had to appreciate the fact that they were both very likable characters, and we were able to learn why Matilda ran, and one character I had to hesitate because as I'm talking, I remember, even though I read this book a couple months ago, that there was one character who was just not likable, and that kind of was pivotal into giving this book an element of intrigue. So when I read this book, I read it so fast without putting it down. Now remember, it's a print arc, right? I'm reading it, and next thing I know, I was about this far into the book before I put it down. That's how good it is. So in any event, this book here came from Forever Publishing, and I want to thank them for this arc in exchange for my review. Okay, I'm going to move on to His Convenient Highland Wedding. Yes, it's another historical, and this is the first book in the Lockmore Legacy series. And before I give you my review, I want to tell you the other 3 stories. They were all written by different authors, and they all cover a different time period in the Lockmore Legacy. The second book is Unlaced by the Highland Duke by Lara Temple. Book 3 is A Runaway Bride for the Highlander by Elizabeth Hobbs. And book 4 is The Secrets of a Highland Warrior by Nicole Locke. Now, I haven't had time to read these books, but I decided that I'm going to pop up the book covers in case you want to follow the whole Lockmore Legacy series. As far as this book, His Convenient Highland Wedding, is concerned, it came out on April 1st. It was a great book. I gave it 4 stars. Now, we read about Lachlan McNeil. Lachlan McNeil was insanely rich, but he came from a lowly status. In that day and age, status was everything, and it really didn't matter how much money you had. Well, if he were to marry the Earl's daughter, in this case Flora McCreef, having her on his arm would open a lot of doors for him. So when he approached her father to marry her, she wasn't aware of it, but the father said yes, and they got married. Now for Lachlan, it's business first. He just wants the status. He just wants to go into certain places and have the ability to make an imprint. And with that, that's why he wanted to be with Flora. However, as things progress, they draw closer and closer together, even though it wasn't easy for them to do. They both have amazing strengths, and it took some doing for them to realize that each of them had something that they could offer. I want to thank the author Janice Preston because she gave me such an impression by writing these characters. As a matter of fact, this touching story introduced deep and abiding love between 2 deserving people. So I love the way that it came through. It was a marvelous read and a great start to a promising series. It came from Harlequin and NetGalley, and I appreciate the fact that I was able to review this book. By the way, each book will have the affiliate link in the description box below, so that if you were to buy any of the books that are mentioned in this review, you'll know that I will get a few pennies for the cost of that book, but it won't cost you anything different. The next book I read was A Single Dad to Heal Her Heart, another Harlequin book. In this case, it was a Mills and Boons medical book. Mills and Boons medical in their series. Harlequin has a lot of series, and this was one of them. Now, this book came out March 19th, and I gave it 4 stars. Again, you'll notice that a lot of these books came out in March and April because I'm a couple of months behind in my videos. In this book, Livy Henderson has been cancer-free for 5 years. She's enjoying life to the full. She takes a job as a CSI investigator, and she happens upon someone who's like, what are you doing this kind of a job? Well, meanwhile, she decides to go climbing, and when she does, she runs into this guy again. But what happens is she falls, she plummets off a cliff and lands on among some very sharp rocks. Well, she's rescued by a fellow competitor, Matt Hunter, and Matt is, I believe, yes, he's an accomplished trauma surgeon, and he helps her during her injury and beyond. Now, Matt is a busy father, as I mentioned, a surgeon, so there's not a lot of time in his life, and certainly not a lot of time or any time for romance, even if the fact that Livy is a very beautiful woman. So what happens, the book delves into or develops into a very sensitive and well done love story. That's what it ends up being. Barriers are broken down between Matt and Livy, but also between Livy and his 2 children. It was a delightful book that worked on all levels, and it was an emotional read that was delivered by Carolyn Anderson. I've never read any of her books before, but I'll definitely read them in the future. So I want to thank Harlequin and NetGalley for this for review. I read yet another Harlequin book, and this was a Harlequin Desire book. I haven't read a Harlequin Desire book in maybe 8 to 9 years. And this is the 6th book in the Copper Ridge series. I haven't read the previous books, but this one here came out April 2nd, and I gave it 4.5 stars. Now, Levi Trucker is the guy in this book, and in his case, he was just released from prison after being committed for a crime that he did not commit, or after being in prison for a crime he didn't commit. Now, Levi has more than one opportunity, or one more opportunity, to rebuild his life, and he's going to start it by building the home of his dreams. Well, he hires a very successful architect who happens to be a beautiful woman. And when he hires her, her name is Faith, they develop a strong relationship, but it is not right away. Because as the book grows, he's looking for a home, a house, and she's looking for a home. So as she works on her designs, she gives him a lot of ideas, and these ideas extend into her trying to get a personal relationship with him. He doesn't want that though, because she's several years younger than him, and he feels that it's a line that he will not pass. It was an enjoyable read by the author, and her name is Maisie Yates, and I loved it. I love the fact that she was an intelligent architect, but I also love the fact that she was a woman who knew what she wanted. And last but not least, as I mentioned, it's the 6th book in the series, and maybe I may check out the other ones, but in any case, this one did good as a standalone. The next book I have is The Last Year of the War, and this is by Susan Meissner. This was a great read. I gave it 5 stars, and it came out March 19th. Now, this was a Berkeley title, and I'm going to tell you something. It was one of the best reads that I've read in 2019. I've got a handful of books that I've marked, I think maybe 10, but considering I've read 213 books so far this year, 10 is a fair amount of books to cull out of that number to be top reads, and this one is certainly one of them. It was an engrossing read. It took place after World War II, or right at the end of World War II. And what happened was there were 2 families. One was German American, the other was Japanese American. The government was grabbing all of these families of immigrants, whether they were the immigrants themselves or second generation, such as the 2 girls that I'm going to mention were, and they threw them into an internment camp, and which means they lost everything. In the case of both fathers, they were successful businessmen. In the case of both teen girls, they were both born in America, yet this is how the family suffered. The 2 girls in question are Elise Sontag, who is German American, and then Mariko Inoue, who is Japanese American. They became fast friends, and being captured and sent to this camp, it was very traumatic, but it allowed them to develop an intense bond. Now, eventually, Mariko her father went back to Japan, and Elise's father went back to Germany, so they pretty much lost contact, but they stayed in touch through letters. Well, eventually the letters slowed down, and then even more, they completely stopped. Well, Elise spent decades looking for Mariko. She wanted to find her. She needed to find her. They were so close, so she does everything she can to find her. It's a very, very, very sensitive read. I loved it. I enjoyed the emotionalism of it. I didn't jot down the genre, but I'm sure it was women's fiction. I'm sorry for all of the traffic. It was women's fiction, and it really touched deeply on historical fact. As a matter of fact, I remember Googling some things that I read in the book, and they actually happened. It also worked into Elise's development and growth. And then the last thing I want to mention, I really liked her father. I loved both of her parents in this book, but especially her father. So it was a great read. I really encourage you to read it. I'm sorry that it's taken me 2 months to build up this book, but it was really good. And I got it from Berkeley through the Edelweiss Review Program. I have just 2 more left. This one here is The Fifth Doctrine by Karen Robards. It's the 3rd series in the Guardian series. It's the 3rd book in the Guardian series. I haven't had a chance to read the other 2. This was another Harlequin. This was Mirror. So I've had Harlequin Historical, Harlequin Desire, Harlequin Mills and Boone, and now I have Harlequin Mirror. And I remember when I got these books back in March, they were all in a row on the NetGalley site, except for one was on the Edelweiss site. And I clicked them, was approved for them, and read them all during the first few days of April. As mentioned, The Fifth Doctrine is a Mirror title. It came out March 19th, and I gave it 5 stars. Now, in this book, Bianca St. Ives, the owner of a private security company, gets an offer that she can't refuse. Take this job or die. 2 choices. Well, being forced to take the job and discovering or already being in knowledge of the fact that she's been hunted by the CIA, well, this could be a chance for her to save her life. But she must complete a dangerous mission, and if she does, she gets the opportunity to be free from danger. This is a thrilling book by Karen Robards, and the situation is Bianca must take on the role of another woman. She has to dress like her, talk like her, and look like her as much as possible. And when she does this, her job is to enter the belly of the beast and to plant false information on a computer. If she's successful in doing that, she can put a stop to the impending disaster involving North Korea. So it's pivotal, it's critical, it's delicate, because one single mistake could ruin everything. So obviously this is an espionage thriller, and it is of the highest caliber. The action begins from the very first page and continues throughout. And I want to tell you about one scene. Bianca's in her car and she's driving. She's trying to get away from a guy. The guy that insisted she take the case, but the guy that insisted she take the case is somebody from her past that she simply does not trust. So just before she was in her car, she was in a garage and she escaped the guy. So she jumps in her car and she's driving away, but all of a sudden she's pressing on the brake and nothing happens. The car radio comes on really loud. The windshield wipers come on and they're going really fast. And she has no control. She realizes that her car is being remotely driven. What happens? All of a sudden she's in traffic. So the guy that she was trying to escape comes banging on her car window. And as he's banging on her car window, she's like, no, you can't come in. I'm trying to get away from you. Get away, get away. And he tries to break the window. He has something like a baton or something. He's trying to break the window. But the car was a protected car. It was an armored car, and he can't break the window. Meanwhile, she's inside of the car, and all this stuff is happening. So she lets him in, and they continue to flee from danger. That's how this book is written. That's just one scene. 2 scenes if you count what happened in the garage. So I just want to tell you that. If you like espionage thrillers, I say read this book. I want to thank Mirror and NetGalley for it, and I'm looking forward to continuing the Guardian series. As a matter of fact, come time willing, I will read the first 2 books in that series. The last book I have for review in this video is Heartlands by Carrie Watts, and I gave it 1 star. It's not as exciting as the one I just mentioned, but it was a good read on its own. This was released March 21st, and I gave it 4 stars. Now, this is the beginning of a new series by Carrie Watts, and it's the Detective Jesse Blake series. Now, in this book, Jesse takes on her first big case, and it's a hard one, because there's a teen named Shannon Ross who suddenly turns up missing. And now Jesse has 2 things going on. The vigorous task of finding out what happened to this girl and preventing any other girls from going missing, but also to hide a secretive past. And if she reveals this past, she could lose everything: her job, her security, and her freedom. Well, as it turns out, she's not the only one with the secret. Something involving the missing girl exposes the small town secrets in the anonymity. Oh, sorry. I said that word earlier so I wouldn't mess it up. But there's a lot of I can't say this word. Anomalies that eventually cause these situations to explode. The secrets are revealed, and it's done layer upon layer upon layer of details, and the connections are revealed. This is a great read, one delivered in 2 timelines, therefore giving us varying points of view. It was very intriguing from the start. I really enjoyed it. It had a lot of twists and turns, and the conclusion was utterly shocking. I want to thank Bookature and NetGalley for this arc for review. Okay, that's it. That's this week's books, or this video's books. I'll probably do another one and release it this week, and that one will only have 7 books in that particular review. Oh, I wanted to mention at the end, and I'm going to pop up the book cover. I read Heart of Envy by Amanda Robson. I gave it 1 star, and I only read 30% of it. I do have a very brief review on Goodreads. It's not a favorable review, so I won't give you any more information about that. All right, thank you for your time. As I mentioned, the description box below will have the affiliate links, and I look forward to being back with you really soon with more book reviews. I have got to do my haul video and my May reads, and I will get both of those done in a few days, if not in a few days by next week. Thank you for your time. Bye-bye.